is John Stoffel, our lovely and talented monitor engineer, and he's also a drummer, so it's really cool because I'm the drummer with
Tracy Broussard. He's the drummer,
and it's really cool. First starting out that to have a monitor guy that is also a drummer, because he understands. I'm not sure about technical stuff, like, well, this 250 needs this K something has to come out. I can tell him, hey, look, it's just too muddy, and he knows exactly what I'm talking about being a drummer.
It's one thing to listen to the mix and be able to know what it's supposed to sound like, you know,
right?
Versus guessing if you don't have a clue to what the instrument's supposed to sound like. But that's true with anything, you know. If you listen to an instrument, if I go up to your drum kit and listen to it, then it should reproduce that,
right?
Coming back to you, you know what I'm saying? That's kind of the deal.
And you've been a great help for me as far as what tuning wise and whatnot, what works and what doesn't. Hey man, that's not really where it should be, or this is kind of weird. And it's also good. You're like a check and balance for me, you know. So, because a lot of times, man, I'll hit the drums. I'm like, okay, is it just me, or do they sound good?
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, yeah, they do. Because you know, we could be just stuck in a, you know, hey, this sounds good, and
well, you tend to get very comfortable when we're doing so much, and it becomes where you may think it sounds okay.
Right.
Does that make any sense? So you're so used to it over a period of time. Yeah. It's like like a drum head aging.
Right.
You know, it doesn't sound bad to you really until you put new ones on and go, wow.
Exactly.
You know, now it sounds really good again. So.
Yeah, and also you helped me out a ton in mic placement and mic selection and whatnot, what would work, you know.
Well, you know, we're using the key is, and it wasn't my idea by any means, but the 602s on the floor toms, you know.
It just made sense.
It's a large drum.
A larger diaphragm on the mic, correct?
A lot of people don't get that, and yeah, it brings out the whole tone of the larger drums, and that's makes the key. You know, the smaller diaphragms can reproduce it, but they don't reproduce it as naturally as the larger ones do.
Yeah, it's night and day from what we were using on before. We've gotten a lot of guys on the road that are like, man, why are you guys using? I've never seen you using it.
But I've also seen now, though, I've seen other guys starting to do that too. So, you know, like I said, I didn't come up with the idea, but it does make sense.
It depends on how much we're working and weather conditions and whatnot, but on average, probably every 2 to 3 months, which to some guys are really crazy about it. They'll change heads every show and stuff like that. To me, you can't get a drum doesn't gel in the head until a couple of shows. So I'd say probably 2 to 3 months I would change it. Snare drum heads more frequently because naturally you play those more. So yeah, kick drums, man, they can go almost a year, you know. But yeah, I'd say about every 2 or 3 months. You know, when we added the ride cymbal mic too, I wanted to do that for a while, but
you've been asking for that for a while, and I tell you what, it definitely opened up your mix. As far as your cymbals and stuff, you've got we've moved the mics around a little bit more, and put the 614 underneath your ride, and that's just, I know it for you.
Oh yeah,
it really opened it up. I'm not really sure how much Jeff is, like I said, using it out front. You have to ask him about that.
Well, he said that.
But I don't. You know, I'm sure it's probably helped him out too. I would think.
And also, it's helping him because I have a tambourine right under.
Right. So now he's picking that up.
He's picking that up too. So
he's not having to fade up your overheads to get the tambourine.
It's really helped.
Yeah, that's cool.
To open up my mix, and I'm getting more, because I tend to lose those last 2 crashes as we went down, because I had to, earlier when we were only using 2 614s, I had it over the ride, and you get the ride and some of the definition, but you lose the last crash.
But it wash out after a while, because
So I'm glad we added that, and
the 602 on this kick, the 901 inside.
We got the kick drum inside good in my ears. We're using, you know, the 901 inside, which
it's a condenser
mic. So
PCM basically.
What does that do as far as sonically? What's the frequency range on that as far as what do you
it's more the bigness of it, what you experience. We use that in combination with the 602, so you're hearing both in your ears. 602 is getting a lot of the punchiness that you like. You know, the upper mids, some of that snap. Although you don't have a lot of snap in your kick, but what I'm saying, Whereas the 901 inside's got all that bigness, that large low end that really you can feel right here, and that's the key. You're using both of them. On a smaller bass drum, on your, I guess what you call the jungle drum, or
the 16 by 16. Yeah.
We're using a 902 by itself, but that's a whole different story there. That's not your main kick. That's actually an auxiliary kick. We want to sound different. We don't want it to sound like a normal 22 kick like you're running. So we run the 902 in there, and like I said, in my ears, and of course listening to your mix, it sounds really nice because it does sound different, very different.
That's the goal. I mean, it's a little drum and it's used for a drum loop. So we don't want it to be big and fat. You could fatten up anything to sound like
you could completely make it sound like the other one almost.
And that's the problem I run into with other, in my ears, I hear the difference.
Right.
But once it gets past that on this in front of house, you hope that it's being translated out there,
And between the 901 and the 602, phasing issues have never been an issue. I know a lot of guys have issues by using 2 mics within the bass drum, but I've never had any problem with that. Sometimes you got to invert phasing or whatever, but I've never had an issue with that. It's always sounded good to me. Do very minimal strip EQ on it. I mean, I do a few cuts here and there, but I mean, I don't have to do a whole lot to get it to sound good. I'm from the school of minimal is better. If I can scoop out something to make it better, I'm not going to... If somebody's need to be boosted a lot of places, I need to look somewhere else, either mic placement or microphone, or to me that's my thing. Whereas I scoop out a couple things and it's good to go. It's very easy. Not to get really away from the kit, but the vocal mic's the same way. With Blake's vocal mic, man, it's flat almost.
Oh.
Yeah, it cuts.
Just using the natural EQ.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I high pass a little bit, but that's about it.
Man, I listened to way too much Stuart Copeland when I was growing up.
So
I like that cut, man, and it's like the higher I can tune it, the better to get that crack, but I lose body.
There's a happy medium in country music.
And that's what I'm trying to find, is that happy medium, and I think with us, combination of the tuning issue and finding that happy medium, and then using the 905, it's I really found that. But I can't get too happy with too tune happy when I want to crank it. And I gotta watch that. You can get away with it in pop and rock and stuff. Then I'm also using an auxiliary snare drum, which I'm using a 604 on.
Which I've been wanting to try the other mic on that. We just haven't done it yet.
Oh yeah.
I'd like to bring one out for that. Mic placement's another thing too. If you look at the way a lot of guys mic their snare drum, take a look at the angle. Look where it's pointing. It has a lot to do. Yes, it's a good microphone, and the snare drum's tuned well. But between the two, where your placement is, that's crucial too.
What is optimum snare drum placement? Mic placement?
Well, personally, I like it shooting towards, basically where you got it, towards the middle of the head.
Kind of like a 45.
Yeah, a lot of guys will do this. They'll put it straight down, and I think you're losing a lot of your body of your drum by doing that. That's just my personal.
Straight down like this.
Yeah, well, I see a lot of that. But I like to go across the head. That was taught to me by a guy years and years and years ago. He was like, yeah, it makes all the difference in the world. And I don't find any need to put anything underneath. A lot of guys run on stairs underneath it. We've never had an issue with that. So
yeah,
it's kind of one of those things.
Do you use any processing on the snare? Compression or anything?
I compress mixes. I don't compress individual instruments in Monitor World. Just a little bit off the top compression for Tracy, make it a little fatter in his ears, and in the event something goes wild, it'll protect his ears, Yeah. But I got a little bit of verb on the kit, and that's it. It's really a straightforward.